Okay, eat this, not that. Simple changes, big impacts. Welcome to Health Talk. This is Chicano Life, UMiami Health Edition. Good nutrition requires knowing the current research-based information on healthy eating habits, understanding your unique needs, and knowing how to avoid diet pitfalls. Hi guys, I'm so happy. Hola mis amores, ¿cómo están? Esto es Facebook Live. Lo vamos a estar haciendo en inglés y al final si tienen preguntas también puedo hacer alguna en español, pero como saben los doctores todos hablan inglés, es su primer idioma. Y de todas maneras más tarde, después, durante varios días, yo voy a hacer varios posts en español para la audiencia que quiera hacer hi, so we're going to be speaking English throughout the conversation and chat. This is Health Talk, and let me introduce you to Michelle Pearlman, MD, a board-certified gastroenterologist, obesity, medicine, and physician nutrition specialist at the University of Miami. And also, Elizabeth Ferrer, a registered dietitian and licensed dietitian nutritionist. First of all, if you want to have I'm going to post later a website where you can link and you can also call and make a reservation, like it's a party. An appointment. I was telling them that they look like the doctors in a TV series because they're both smart and beautiful. So welcome to this Facebook Live. How are you guys?
We're wonderful.
Okay. Is this your first time in front of a camera?
No.
Facebook Live? I bet. So let's talk about nutrition. I know that you have all the props here so we can show them what to eat and not. There's a lot of confusion when it comes to nutrition. I've been here in doing interviews to different doctors about different kind of diets, but when it comes to the daily life, and we are all busy, moms with kids, you are very confused sometimes about choosing the right what to eat and what not to eat. So when it comes to losing weight and weight loss strategies, why is it so confusing?
The problem is that there's so much information out there.
Okay.
So with the age of the internet, it's information overload. So you can go to one website and they'll say go keto. One website's going to say go Atkins. One website will say go vegan, right?
Yes.
So there's so much information. There are so many little tips and tricks that you get that most people are not sure which website to look at or what's going to work for them. So when patients come to my clinic and they say, well, watermelon, is watermelon good for me? Well, again, watermelon has a lot of nutrients, but the problem is if you're trying to lose weight, then eating a lot of watermelon is way too much sugar. So it really depends on the individual person's goals and what their eating preferences are. So I'm not going to tell someone who's vegan they need to get 70% of their calories from fat. That's not realistic. So there's a lot of things that come into play, but I think a huge reason why people are so confused is because the data and the information out there is very confusing and very contradictory.
Like Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
Dr.
Sometimes
Google
dangerous.
gives me job security.
I know. And those healthy eating starts, I always say, with parents as role models, because like me, I come from an immigrant family. My parents, my dad is Italian. My mom was born in Mexico, but from Spanish parents. So we had a very vegetable-based diet, and we used to cook together, like very family meals, and also juices, a lot of fruits. So I think it's different here in the United States.
I think in the United States we kind of grew up, I even grew up into it, like the Finish Your Plate Club. So when we go to these restaurants and we see these huge plates of food, we're like, okay, well, we're going to finish the plate. This is a great deal for so much food. And when we need to see, what's in this food? What are we choosing? How many calories? How much protein's in it? What's the composition of the meal? And not overeating. Like, it's okay to share a meal with somebody when we go out. You don't have to finish your plate. You can take home leftovers as well. So that's something, yes, in the U.S. kind of culture, we want to supersize everything. or make the size of foods bigger than what they should be. So that's something as role models, going back to your question, we need to be for kids in the future as well. We were talking yesterday about juice.
Yes.
Now it's the promotions and things like that with juice. We have to make sure we're reading the nutrition facts label. Just because in the front of all the foods, these companies can put a lot of things that will attract consumers, and then we really have to turn around the foods when we're at the supermarkets and see what's the composition, where are all the calories coming from. Is it just sugar in a box, or is it better to just get the apple instead of the apple juice, for example?
And like all the trends, sometimes like now is healthy eating trendy, but not all else healthy eating is good for you.
Yeah.
But for everybody,
and
right?
so the problem is that what is the definition of healthy, right? What is that definition? So I would argue, okay, well, does healthy mean it's nutrient dense? So there's a lot of vitamins and minerals, maybe, right? So then one can say, well, dirt has nutrients. It's got selenium, iron. I don't tell my patients to eat dirt. I'm not required for that. So it all goes back to food, right? So if you eat, so my little banana here, if you eat one banana, and this is the size of the banana you'll typically find in the supermarket, this is actually about 3 servings. Not many people are going to choose this banana, they're going to choose this banana. So although you could argue this has more nutrients because the serving is larger, it's also got 3 times the amount of sugar that you need.
Yes.
So going to these, getting an acai berry bowl or getting a smoothie and thinking that if you get the 40 ounce instead of the 24 ounce, you're doing your body good because you're getting more nutrients. You're also getting 75 grams of sugar in a green smoothie. So you have to be very careful. These marketing people get paid a lot of money to sell a product to the consumer. That is what they are hired to do. And so unless the consumer is empowered and understands the fundamentals of how to read a nutrition label and navigate through all of these fancy words, then they're going to get tricked, unfortunately.
And it's about, you're showing me this, it's about size. Size
matters.
Size matters. Portion control. That we go to that, right? We go back to that.
So when people again say, well, I grew up on rice and beans, there's no way I can live without my rice and beans, that's fine. This is the amount of rice you can have, not a big bowl of rice.
Not even.
Exactly. Yeah. So when people say they have 3 spoonfuls of rice, I only had a little bit. Little did you know, your 3 spoonfuls is actually a serving, not the whole bowl. And so the problem is that when you go to a restaurant, if you get, let's say, a big burrito bowl where there's, rice, beans, chicken, and avocado, what are they giving you 2 or 3 cups of? The rice, because it's dirt cheap. And they're giving you just a little bit of an avocado and some slices of chicken because that is more expensive. So they want you to feel satiated, but they don't want to spend a lot of money on the food.
And I think it's about the economy as well, because when I go to a restaurant, I always think about, they serve me the food, even though I go to places that don't serve like big amount of food. Like it's always for me like 2 meals. So for me it's good because I'm paying, for example, $12, $20, so that gives me 2 meals. So I only pay $10 per each, and it's good for me. It's a good deal. What about the supermarket?
Oh, the
supermarket mentality. I always go to the supermarket full.
That is very good. Number 1, definitely, and number 2, going with a list. If we can create a list, because most people have busy schedules, they need to create a list because if not, they'll go off of the list. 1, and if you're trying to meal prep, something like that, then you can have recipes and then create a list from then on. Yeah. So some people kind of get into this, I don't even know how to meal prep what I bought. So being prepared is number 1. And then when we get to the supermarket, the fresher the better, because we have so much processed food, and it's going back to kind of like the marketing companies and things like that that get us. So shopping, like we always say, on the outside of the supermarket, staying away from like the processed foods, canned foods, and frozen foods as well. So
frozen foods as well.
Yeah. So
frozen foods are okay as long as you're not getting the ones with all the preservatives. So many times people will say, if I spend a lot of money on fresh foods, then it goes bad and I have to dump it. But getting, let's say, cauliflower, plain frozen cauliflower, not the frozen TV dinners,
Yes.
but just the plain
A
frozen
little salt.
vegetables, and then you get like the steamed fresh bags or whatnot, pop in the microwave, put it in the oven. That stuff is totally fine. We're talking about the processed frozen TV dinner type things that you want to try to minimize.
Even though now we have the science that says that frozen food, because of the plastic, is kind of toxic too. So when it,
Yeah, so you have to kind of pick your poison.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I know.
Yeah.
But local markets for
Yeah.
me are a very good, choice. So you can go to the local market and buy your stuff fresh from, I don't know, from the local
Yeah.
people who are growing vegetables without, a lot of nutrients, like without any chemicals.
And then you can freeze that. So you could, let's say, dice up the broccoli or the cauliflower and then, freeze it, put it in Tupperware containers, things like that. So you can still buy these things fresh.
Yes,
And
yes.
then minimize how many of them actually go back if you don't eat them.
Please use glass, not Tupperware. Okay, let's talk about what you have here. Okay, if you are tuning in right now, I'm here at UMiami Health. This is Health Talks, and we're talking about nutrition, what to eat on a daily basis. Okay, let's talk about the props that you got brought here. Fruit.
All right, yes.
So much confusion about fruit. Sometimes, every time that I'm gonna eat a fruit, I say, should I not, should I?
Well, I always tell my patients, if we're in the dilemma of kind of the dessert
Yes.
phase or
Uh-huh.
like the brownie in the break room or kind of the cake and things like that, what's gonna always win is gonna be the fruit
The
over
fruit, okay.
the kind
What
of.
is it, the tres leches?
Yeah,
Kind
that
of?
could be. Use your imagination. It can be anything. For the
Yes.
Hispanic population,
Looks like a tres leches.
or a pound cake with a
Exactly.
little bit of icing. But definitely, yes, both of them have sugar in them.
Mhm.
Fruits have sugar that's called fructose naturally, but the nutrient return, as we were talking about before, the cake's just gonna give you also fat aside from sugar, but the apple's gonna give you fiber, more micronutrients, and that fiber will keep you fuller longer. This is gonna satisfy you for maybe 5 minutes, and then you're gonna be pretty mad at yourself for the next
Exactly.
2 hours. So trying to kind of consciously make better decisions, especially if you have a sweet tooth. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, what about jam?
So this is the malanga.
Oh, that's
It's
malanga.
malanga.
Oh, I love malanga for my stomach.
Yes,
I
but-
love it.
So it's a great food that's very high in fiber, but remember, it's all about portion. So like the malanga or the plantain, things like that are staples here in Miami. This is probably actually more than a serving, but this was the smallest malanga I could find.
Oh, wow.
This one was the typical size that I found at the supermarket, and that goes same for the apple.
Yes.
So when you go to the grocery store and you look through the big kind of these huge heaping piles of apples, this one is your typical apple that you're gonna find. This one is actually still more than a serving, but it was the smallest apple I could find.
So I should have a half of that?
So probably 2/3 would be a
2/3.
serving of this.
Okay.
This, when people tell me, but I just had one apple, but you really had 3.
Think like a
This is
Snow
3
White,
servings.
just one bite of
Yeah.
this one.
So we have to make sure that if you want the apple, that's fine, but remember, one apple does not mean one serving. And that's why I really tell people they need to be more mindful of what they're eating, but more importantly, know how much they're eating. And we're very bad at estimating, and so that's where measuring and weighing your foods is extremely important. Particularly weighing. Weighing is more accurate than measuring.
That gives me a lot of anxiety, doctor. Sorry, I'm the worst, but you know what? I'm like, I hate weights. No, I don't weigh myself, but like, I went to the doctor yesterday, to a gastroenterologist, I go like, can I not? No, I don't want to weigh, I don't want to weigh myself.
Yes.
But what about, like your instinct? You see the size, so it's more accurate, right?
Our instincts as Americans are terrible because what we grew
Well, like
up
the bigger,
on,
the bigger,
exactly.
the better.
Because nowadays when all of these fruits and vegetables, produce are given hormones and
Yes.
things to
Yeah, I
help
know.
with efficiency and size. This is the typical apple that a kid's
That's
gonna
huge.
eat.
That's
So you
huge.
can't blame a kid.
And this is not organic, right?
No. But the typical person who's in society these days is going to see this and think it's one serving, right? If they lived in caveman days, they would have seen an apple more like this size.
Or smaller.
Exactly. And they would have thought this was a serving. Unfortunately, everything is supersized. So you can't blame the typical person that they don't understand what a portion is. You know, how many people are gonna buy this banana and cut it in 3 and save the rest for later? Not many people.
Not many people. What about meat and protein?
So proteins, we have animal protein,
Yes.
and then there's also non-animal sources of protein as well. So things like nuts, nut butter. We have to be careful with the nuts and the nut butter, just because people are like, oh, I love peanut butter. I'm like, oh, but how much are you having? Like, number one, don't eat it out of the jar is what I would recommend, because you're usually gonna have 2 or 3 servings. But definitely a serving is about a tablespoon, and most of us will kind of serve a tablespoon
and then another one, and then another one.
Yeah, so it's kind of we keep going, and then aside from the nut butters, sometimes they add sugar as well, just to keep you kind of wanting more. And then you also have nuts. So the fresh nuts, if we can get them without the salt or no sodium, so unsalted and definitely not candied. So that's another thing we'll find at like ballparks and things like that. So that's a good source of a snack to include protein in your diet, aside from having the leaner cuts of meat and protein. So salmon, fish is a good option, tuna, usually in water is a little bit better, that's what we recommend. And then we have salmon, tilapia, and then turkey and chicken as well. So the skinless chicken is going to be the best, because we don't want all that extra fat coming from the skin of the chicken. And definitely not to fry any foods. If we can stay away from the deep fryer, that would be great. But
what about the new, stuff like the vegetarian burger that is not a burger? I'm obsessed with that one.
So
I
you
posted.
have to be a little bit careful.
I know, but I read it. It doesn't have any much of the sodium, but it's amazing because the serving is small. You can't. I always have it on a lettuce wrap, so it's perfect for me. And the taste is so good, and it's not meat.
Yeah, you just have to obviously be careful on which one you're getting, because a lot of times when they take out the protein and it's a lot of vegetables, they add a lot of fillers.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Is if there's beans and
Oh no, I can't have those. Those are very, very bad for my stomach. I'm having the one that is now like trending. I don't remember the brand now, but it looks like meat, tastes like meat, and when you cook it, it was weird. Like it had a lot of oil. So I was like a very scientific. I was like, what's going on with this? Why is it bleeding if it's not meat? Should I eat this? But it's a trend, and I think it's good that people are eating less and less animal protein.
Yeah. I mean, you just want to be able to understand what the ingredients are.
Okay.
That's really the key thing here is you really can't trust what's on the front of any package. You have to, again, look at the nutrition label. Everything is listed in the ingredients. Unfortunately, it's so small you have to take out your magnifying glass.
Yes, and sometimes it's difficult to read.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the company does that on purpose. Okay?
Yeah.
They do that on purpose because a lot of products nowadays, if they're processed, have 30 ingredients.
Yes.
And many times they are going to use weird terms that you're not going to know what they are, and they're all basically substitutes for sugars. They're going to say like the high fructose corn syrup, the cane sugar, the maple syrup. They are all sugar, and they're going to be listed under various names that don't seem familiar to you. And so that's the problem with the difficulty with understanding nutrition labels.
We are addicts in the United States. We're sugar addicts, right? Everything
100%.
has sugar. Everything has sugar.
And the problem is that fat was victimized.
Yes, I know.
And when you take out the fat in a product, you lose the flavor. So what do? You add sugar to it. So the whole non-fat craze, the non-fat salad dressings, the non-fat milk, the non-fat yogurt, when you take out the fat, you add sugar. So people look at the front of the product and they say, oh, it's non-fat milk, or it's low fat, and they don't even think to look at the sugar content. And so that's really the problem. That's really what's contributed to obesity. 2/3 of the population being overweight and obese is sugar. And like you mentioned, it's an addiction.
It is.
It triggers reward centers in our brain, just like crack cocaine.
Yes. The study says that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about easy food swaps. What can we, like, to the daily people, like, you wake up and you're like, oh my God, my breakfast. And I always eat a lot of cereal.
Definitely.
My favorite, because, cereal here is big.
Cereal's another one that once we're in the supermarket, we gotta turn around everything. Be that crazy person that goes around turning around everything, because you're learning.
I know.
And you usually only have to do it once or twice when you're in the supermarket, but for yogurts, for things that are all processed, bars and cereals, those are the number 3 things that once we can find one that's lower in sugar, that's what we would recommend. Or oatmeal. Oatmeal is a great substitute. It has healthy fibers as well, so that'll keep you fuller longer and sustained energy throughout your whole morning to get you to lunch. Because usually if we just go out and have like a donut or something with coffee, you're going to be hungry within an hour, because really it's just empty calories and there was no nutrients in there. Aside from that, having a protein at breakfast. So definitely having an egg. Eggs before were thought to be bad.
Yes.
Eggs are a good source of protein, so that's something that we can include on a daily basis in our diet at breakfast.
Daily?
Yeah, daily.
Okay.
And then you can use also nuts as well in the morning. Something doesn't have to be a huge breakfast, like buffet meal, but something that you'll stick to and something that you won't skip breakfast either.
People ask about a lot about rice. This morning when we post a rice or quinoa, people were asking, oh my God, I like both. What do you think about that?
Well, the quinoa versus the rice, the quinoa is definitely going to give you a lot more nutrient return and more protein. So going back on the portion size, it's very important. So it's not something that, okay, so quinoa is healthy, so I'm going to have, instead of the 3 balls of rice, I'm going to have 3 balls of quinoa. No, we're not going to do that, because we want to focus on the quantity of the food and the portion size as well as the quality of the food. So versus rice, the rice is going to give you maybe 2 grams of protein, and then the quinoa will give you about 8 grams of protein.
Black beans?
Black beans.
So great source of protein and fiber. The issue is that I'm a gastroenterologist, so a lot of my patients have bloating. So a lot of these foods, again, it depends on what the patient's goal is. If someone has a lot of bloating, then eating a food that contains carbohydrates called FODMAPs, when those carbohydrates are broken down by bacteria in our gut, they form hydrogen, methane, and sulfur. Those are gases, and that causes intestinal gas. So it doesn't cause harm to your gut, but it causes bloating. So again, it all goes back to, you're at the particular food, but also the particular individual's symptoms and underlying goals. So again, beans are great sources of protein and fiber. If someone comes to me complaining of a lot of burping and flatus, then I'm not going to recommend a lot of lentils and beans.
Of course. Okay, final remarks about lifestyle habits from you guys. What would it be like best recommendation?
Definitely exercise. A lot of people tell me they don't have time to exercise, and it doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be at the gym. So I always ask my patients, what do you like to do for physical activity? And then I try to set a goal with them, because I think that should be a part of everyone's kind of lifestyle for longevity. And then try to set a goal and have a routine, because once it's a part of your day, that's it. Just like eating's a part of your day, exercising, moving around should be a part of your day as well. And something we were talking about yesterday as well, I think everyone should be going to their physician and getting their blood work done, because aside from everything you read online and stuff, if you don't know your own numbers, if you don't know, you should be weighing yourself. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but knowing all your numbers is good. Just because if something is underlyingly going on, then you may be anemic and you don't even know, because you haven't had your iron tested in a while and things like that. Or you may have hypercholesterolemia and you don't even know because you haven't gotten your blood work done. So that's something definitely for longevity. It's not only how we look outside, but what's going on internally is very important as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And so exercise is very important. I'm a huge proponent, but I think people also have to keep in mind that you can never out-exercise a poor diet. So unless you're an elite athlete, that doesn't mean you can eat whatever you want. And our body changes over time. So when we have hormone changes, we're put on medications, we're more sedentary, we have stress, we have kids, you name it, things happen in life. That's what happens. What you were able to get away with when you were 20, you can't get away with anymore. And so it's all about adapting to that. So people can argue with me all they want that it's just a little bit of rice and just a little piece of cake and just a little bit of malanga. But then if they were truly reaching their goals and feeling great, they wouldn't be in my clinic asking for help on weight loss. So it ultimately comes down to there's no perfect diet. If there were a perfect diet, there wouldn't be 500,000 fad diets on the market and 1 million supplements, okay? There's no magic pill either. It all comes down to being more mindful of what you're eating, understanding the fundamentals of nutrition, which unfortunately we are never taught in school, learning how to read a nutrition label, learn what true portions are, and figuring out what's going to work for each individual person.
And I would add, like, listen to your emotions as well, because I think I link food with emotions and emotional eating. Yes. And if you want to book an appointment, the phone number is 305-243-4000, 305-243-4000. And I'm going to share with you later the website, which is medicine.med.miami.edu gastroenterology. So I'm gonna share with you guys so you can click and book your appointment if you need help. That's why we're here for. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much, Dr. for your time, because I know it's your lunch time and everybody's hungry. And
we have bananas.
We have bananas.
We have 3 people.
Or the fake, tres leches. This is the only fake thing that I can eat. Thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing the love. Después les hago todo en español para que puedan entender y hagan sus preguntas también aquí. Y por supuesto, como siempre les digo, cuídense y compartan este Facebook Live con amor. Besitos. Thank you.